And as a matter of fact, that is the real story that I want to share today, is that around 7,000 who are the families of those FDLR have now also come with the support of the International Red Cross, and they are coming back to Rwanda. A few days ago, we had an extraordinary meeting at a UN Security Council called in by the United States about the situation in the DRC.
Declaro abierta
The 9,985th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda to participate in this meeting.
And well, that should be a story on its own, but allow me to take a few elements that were said and shared during that meeting, during that session. Not just a meeting, it's a full session about the dramatic situation in DRC, especially as some elements are also unfolding in these last days about the situation over there, and which also allow me to actually say how much or how little people who were speaking there, who took the floor, seems to be really unrealistically informed about what is really happening in DRC and what has been happening. Of course, we've been bombarded by accusations in these last 3 years about Rwanda being there, about minerals, and to the extent that something is constantly being minimized, which for me actually shows how little people know about it. I mean, deciders, or how little they want to know about it. And maybe also the way that these people are considering Africans and things that are happening in Africa. And amongst those things is the notion of genocide. You know, because at the end of the day, whatever we're talking about today started 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, a whole generation ago. The genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsi in '94 today seems like, you know, like, yeah, it's an African thing. It's, you know, these people have tribal issues, you know, it's tribal wars. That's part of genocide denial, you know, because people don't understand today, apparently, that genocide is not anything that is spontaneous. And it's also not about numbers. Genocide is a construction. People tend to forget that the very first victims of the Holocaust, they were German. They were Jews, but they were German. They were German like other Germans, you know, only that they had another belief. So you had to construct them as a problem for the society to create everything that was possible to eliminate them, you know. It's the same with the Tutsi and the Hutus and what happened in Rwanda, you know. People think sometimes that Hutus is a tribe and Tutsis are another tribe. There is nothing like that. They're all Rwandans. They're all Banyarwanda. They have all common ancestry. They have all common history. And the genocide was a construction to get to kill these people and with the will to eliminate them, to eradicate them. That was a construction, and that's an ideology. Which is why what happened ever after 94, to tolerate that these people who had been defeated got eventually found safe haven in Zaire, and that now became Congo, DRC. The fact to have been tolerating all of that, people who were talking in New York at the United Nations Security Council don't understand that this ideology was being kept alive in that part of the Congo. And for 30 years now, the problem was in that part of the world, of Africa, in Eastern Congo. It has been a problem for all the people of the Eastern Congo, of the North and Southern Kivu. And it has also into other parts of the Congo. It went beyond the Kivus, it went beyond the Eastern Congo, to the point that if people think that the genocidaires who fled in 94 are all today, they forget one thing, or they don't want to consider one thing, that an ideology is something that you pass to other people, just like a religion. So if the commanders of the FDLR, because that's where I'm going to, are maybe my generation, they're older, the combatants are young people, are young Banyarwanda or young refugees who fled there in 94. So people sometimes don't understand that this ideology, because nothing stopped it in these last 30 years to just spread, even beyond the Banyarwanda communities. So it's like a virus that went and actually infected the whole body of the Eastern Congo. And like I said, there is nothing natural into genocide ideology. It's all a construction. It's based on hate speech, the hate of the one that you want to target. We all know, and if you are sincere, you know that there has been a problem of governance in that part of Africa, in the Congo. The lack of governance that could stop this nonsense that is driving, in fact, so much violence that people speak about it like if it's a natural thing for Africans, like the sexual violence, like chopping people, killing them. We've seen in these last 3 years an incredible amount of crimes that haven't been reported. With these modern times that we're living in, video shared about how people have been chased, burned alive, grilled. Even we had cases of cannibalism, that people were eating their victims just for what they were. So this is not something that is natural. It's not something that is spontaneous. It was there because there was genocidaires with their ideology and doing what they do the best, teaching how to hate, how to kill. And that is how actually President Tshisekedi, when he decided to take war to the Eastern Congo, at the end of the day, contracted them. Because he could see that they were the best fighters, they were the best military, they knew about how to fight a war and how to organize, in fact, soldiers and how to organize military. They've been given everything by Tshisekedi. They've been given all means possible. He would be, in fact, standing on them, counting on them to do what he actually, in fine, wanted, is to attack Rwanda and to have a government change in Rwanda. He has said it himself different times, on different occasions, and it's on camera. It's public. What he wanted at the end was to change the government in Rwanda and actually to beat Rwanda. For what reason? At this point, it's not important. The fact is that he said it multiple times. And he could see, he could not just count on his own army. And that is why he massively actually got the FDLR inside his own military. And he knew that these were the people who had even another reason, just like him, to attack Rwanda and to have what he called a regime change. Now, the fact that eventually, after 3 years, the M23 had asked for talks with Tshisekedi, to negotiate with Tshisekedi. But being under attack all of the time made M23 actually defend and beat all the armies that Tshisekedi was launching against their positions, eventually to take over the end of January of this year, Goma, and then shortly after, Bukavu. While Tshisekedi, or when Tshisekedi contracted the FDLR also, in fact, had their own population dreaming about a quick return to Rwanda, where they would take over Rwanda, and the population had to trust them that their life as refugees would end when they take over Rwanda. But the fact that M23 eventually disturbed their plans, and heavily the defeat of all the armies that Tshisekedi had launched against Rwanda in Goma, hit their communities heavily in their morale. So we have seen ever since the M23 took over Goma and Bukavu that more and more FDLR, in fact, gave up. They gave up. And today I can say that we have like around 2,000 to 3,000 FDLR who surrendered and are now in the Mutobo center. Well, they've been welcomed and find a way to, since they surrendered, how they can eventually, how they can now think of another future for themselves and reintegrate the Rwandan society, because that's how Rwanda has been dealing with that all of these last 3 decades, ever since '94. But it's not just the FDLR, the combatants, all the families that had been their community, their women, their children, their parents, who had been living as refugees there in the Congo, had no other choice. Well, it's not, let me just express it differently. They just realized that all what they had been told will never happen. And it made no sense for them to remain more days in the Congo. And as a matter of fact, that is the real story that I want to share today, is that around 7,000 of those families, 7,000 who are the families of those FDLR, have now also come with the support of the International Red Cross. They've come and they've come to Goma, and they are coming back to Rwanda. They will now be relocated as they come into Rwanda and try, and Rwanda will assist them to find their place in this society. So that is the real story that is behind what happened. That is the story those people in New York don't see. That is the story that these people, the mighty in the United Nations Security Council, don't see. So the effect of M23 taking Goma, that just spoiled all their dreams of the hardcore combatants, and made their disciples actually to say, you know what, this story will lead us nowhere. there is no future in staying in the jungles of the Congo, hoping that one day we will attack Rwanda. That is over for today for these people. So we thank that actually, not to the MONUSCO that has been there ever since 1999. We don't thank it to the international community that was supposed to take care of that. We thank it actually now today at the victory of the M23. So we can say today that because of that, 2,000 to 3,000 combatants of the FDLR surrendered, are back in Rwanda, are going through the welcome center, will be reintegrated in the society, and their families also followed, and they're like around 7,000. So it wasn't a small force, it was not a small community, and but they're back in Rwanda.
The 9,985th meeting of the Security Council is called to order.
But so, before we end this session, this message, let's not forget that 30 years ago, let's not forget that that same institution, the UN Security Council, did nothing to prevent the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. And yet, it had been announced that it would happen. So it eventually rolled out on their watch. And the same institution, the same body, the UN Security Council, allowed for the genocidaires, for the genocidal forces that had committed this crime, to still move into Zaire. Actually, it was even with the support with one of the Security Council members, one of the countries. So again, let's also remember that whatever happened today has been developing, going on for the last 30 years, for the last 3 decades, under the watch of the Security Council. So they have never, in all of this time, done anything else than talk, and then to add insult to injury, even taking sanctions against those who have stopped it, who have prevented that another one would happen in this region. Let's never forget, never again.